Okay, in this video we're going to be learning some measurement commands. So I've got sort of a random shape that I drew. It's just a polyline. It's a bunch of connected arcs. So the first one I'll use is area, so I can find the area of this shape. What the default area command is going to come up with is specifying corner points. So it wants me to sort of make an area like this, and it will tell me whatever that area is, and I can hit enter when I'm done, and it says, you know, oh, the area of that box-ish shape I made was 102. That's not very helpful for a shape full of arcs like this. So what I can do instead is I can, rather than specifying a corner point, I can type O, or just click Object down there, and then it allows me to just select the polyline I made, and it tells me that the area of the interior is 99.9-ish, and the perimeter of the polyline is 47. Another command that's going to be pretty useful if you want to just check yourself without putting in a whole bunch of dimensions. Like, I know at this point we've been using the linear dimension command just to check, you know, oh, am I really this far from this point down to here? Instead of doing that, we can use the distance command. So then I can say, okay, I want to know how far from the center of this radius to, how about the center of this radius? And so it tells me that my distance is 10.5. It gives me an angle from the XY plane, angle in the XY plane. It gives me all sorts of information about where to look for that point. Okay, another command that I can use to just get a whole bunch of information in a relatively short time is I can just type a list. It's going to ask me to select an object. Here we go. So, okay, it comes up with all this information, which for this shape it's almost useless, but it gives me all the different radiuses, start and end angles for the different arcs, different points. This is just sort of describing that shape. If I come up here above where it's giving me the information about the shape, I can see the commands I've used before. So I used a linear dimension earlier. Remember, I found the area with the area command. So all sorts of commands that I've used previously related to this object. Okay, another couple of useful commands are the divide and measure commands. So if I have a line segment that's, we'll say, 10 long, if I want to start a line that is a quarter of the length of the line from the end here, I could either, you know, start a new line there and go 2.5 in the same direction, or what I could also do is I could just divide. I could either type divide or just div. I could select my line and number of segments. Since I want it in quarters, I'll say I want 4 line segments. Now if I type line again, I'm able to snap to these nodes. And keep in mind, you have to have an object snap. You need to have your node snap on. So now I can say, you can see that there's a node every 2.5 down this line. If I want to check that, I can use the distance command again. Say, okay, how far is that node? And it's 2.5. Alternatively, if I, instead of wanting to divide up the segment, if I had a line with a more obscure measurement that's, I don't know, 15.357, that's not something that I want to divide up very nicely. Not going to be very nice math. So what I can do instead is I can type measure. I'm going to select this object, and keep in mind I started the line from this end, so it's going to start making segments from this end. So now if I say 2.5, now I'm going to have a line segment that, or a node rather, that's every 2.5 down the line. So you can see it's not going to necessarily line up with the midpoint this time since I have an obscure distance for the line, but I've got a node every 2.5 down the line. So there are just a few measurement commands that you might find useful when you're making objects in CAD.